Today, we are delighted to be joined by a very special guest. Will Laurenson has driven over $20 million in incremental revenue for their clients in just the last 12 months.
Make sure people can find and buy what they want. Make sure you answer all their questions and make sure that you're convincing them it's the right product for them. But when it comes to high value,
I love doing these types of episodes. I learned so much from today's episode in such a short space of time.
the expectation was, and I see this a lot in e-commerce as well, it was kind of, we have made money through our website, therefore the website works and it's not a problem.
Something that a lot of e-commerce business owners are doing. So I'd certainly be reviewing our setup after this conversation. So
it's so shocking how many people are asking about stuff that should be obvious on the website, and the brands are convinced is obvious on the website, but isn't.
If you could give us one piece of actionable advice for our listeners looking to improve the conversion rates of their e-commerce dropshipping stores, what would it be?
I would say
Welcome to the Dropship Unlocked podcast. I'm Lewis Smith, the founder of Dropship Unlocked, and with me is our client success coach, James Erdley. Now, when we're not recording the podcast episodes, we're running our own e-commerce businesses and helping aspiring entrepreneurs launch their own high-ticket dropshipping businesses. Keen to build your own 6 or even 7-figure business? My book, The Home Turf Advantage, is your blueprint for launching a profitable online store. Grab your copy at htabook.com today and let's get you started. Now sit back, relax, and let's unlock your potential with the Dropship Unlocked podcast. So today we are delighted to be joined by a very special guest, Will Laurenson, who is the founder of Customers Who Click, a performance-based conversion rate optimization agency for e-commerce brands. Now their unique UAM method, which we'll be diving into a little bit more detail on today, has driven over $20 million in incremental revenue for their clients in just the last 12 months. So it's going to be a great conversation today. Will's also the host of the Customers Who Click podcast. So check that one out. They have weekly interviews with some of the best and brightest minds in e-commerce. So firstly, Will, great to have you on the podcast. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Amazing. So just to kick things off, could you share with us a little bit about your journey into the world of conversion rate optimization or CRO, and how you came to focus on e-commerce brands specifically through your agency, Customers Who Click?
Yeah, sure. So I kind of got lucky with my first job. I ended up in a kind of incubator style entrepreneurial business. And after about 18 months, I was tasked with launching a new mobile app for the business that would take advantage of all the different businesses that we had, all the different content and stuff, and put something together that would basically increase the value of the company so we could sell it. But I mean, this is, 18 months into my career. So I've obviously done something well. And it's just that those first moments of just the freedom to just do what I wanted and come up with ideas and do some research and stuff and see what's out there was just great. And then the reason I got into CRO really was I worked at 2 different startups a couple of years after that. And I had the exact same problem, like almost identical situation at both of these, slightly different products, but both occasions we were handed reasonably large budgets and told, go acquire customers, grow the business. Marketing's job is grow the business. And the dev team, it was clear the dev team had their roadmap, their 12-month roadmap, might have even been longer, of the new features they wanted to launch, referral programs and in-app, all these things. And, we weren't getting the results we needed with acquisition. We were pretty comfortable with the ad side. We were reasonably confident that our messaging was good, our creative was good, we were getting good click-through rates and all that. And we were getting some customers through, but so much was dropping off. They either weren't turning into trial users. So both of these were like membership apps. So they either weren't turning into trial customers, or they weren't then turning into paying customers, or they would then drop off within a few months. So there was clearly something wrong. Premise of the app was great. The first one was essentially a Spotify for magazines, right? So you got, I can't remember how many it was. Might have been 1,500 magazines across the world. So all for a monthly subscription, right? So that's a great proposition for people who read magazines, and even for people who don't, who think, well, for $9.99 a month, I'll give it a go. If I read 3 magazines, I'm probably covering it. So with all that in mind, we were kind of like, well, why are we struggling with growth? Why aren't we getting people through? Why is our CPA way too high? So I started to speak to customers, find out what was going on. I think probably the most important thing in all this was that the fact that both these businesses were digital products and digital led, which meant that I could see the data, right? I could see, so for the first one, that magazine app, I could see the usage data, right? So we could look at how many magazines people are reading, how far through the magazines they get, how many devices they activate on, how many profiles they activate, that sort of stuff. So that already gave us quite a lot of insight into what was going on. We could see that people who converted from trial to paying read a certain number of magazines, normally added another profile to their account. So we started to target that a little bit. But then it also came down to speaking to people and finding out what they actually wanted from the app and what was important to them. And then, basically the same thing happened at this next company. It was, here's a load of money, go grow the company, the BDC side, but with no support. And it was, the expectation was, and I see this a lot in e-commerce as well, it was kind of, we have made money through our website, therefore the website works and it's not a problem. Therefore, the sort of problem must be on the traffic and acquisition side. And it's not the case. So from there, I was head of conversion at quite a big gambling company here in the UK for about 18 months, and then started Customers Who Click in November 19.
Amazing. What a journey. And it sounds like you got lots of experience in different types of digital businesses there. And obviously, talking about some of your experiences, I think the majority of listeners to this will probably be entrepreneurs who have their own early stage e-commerce business. So they might not have the luxury of that huge pot of money coming in from, as a marketing budget or a dev team at their disposal. So for those of our listeners who might be kind of fairly new to the terms, could you maybe explain, like, top line what conversion rate optimization is and why it's so crucial for individual e-commerce business founders, especially those focusing on higher ticket, higher priced items as they're selling goods?
Yeah, sure. So the first thing I just want to say is just on your first point. I think early stage companies being handed loads of money is basically a recipe for disaster, right? Because it's just, it's spend, grow the company. Obviously, the people spending that money are not the ones who have the actual interest in growing the company. They're just doing a job, right? So they're going to do their job. I know it's dependent on the circumstances and stuff, but it just felt like, money will solve the problem, right? We've built the product. Yeah, exactly. But anyway, to your question. So conversion rate optimization, or CRO, conversion rate optimization. I'm not going to get into the whole CRO, is it the right acronym thing too much, but what we do is not only conversion rate optimization. It's not just the conversion rate we're focused on. In fact, when we're running tests on website, it's not really a metric we pay too much attention to. We look at revenue per visitor because that's the value that you're getting from that test, but I can go into that a bit more later. CRO really is about revenue optimization for a business, right? We're trying to find ways to grow the business, whether it's on the website, feeding into ads, feeding into emails, product, the packaging, all that. What are all the touch points that a customer has with a brand that we can provide feedback into through research, through testing, to help the business grow? And ultimately, we are looking for, that long-term growth. We want higher AOVs, we want LTV, lifetime value. It's the long term. Because ultimately, I could stick free shipping on your website. I could give all your new customers 50% discount. Conversion rate's going to go through the roof. It'll be fantastic, but you're not going to make any money. And what we tend to see is when you over-incentivize, because you're de-risking the purchase so much, your conversion rate actually kind of spikes at a certain point. But what you end up getting is either people send the products back because they never actually wanted them in the first place, or slightly better scenario, they just don't come back again. Right? I know because I've done it. I remember I got this tube of, it was like, do you know Barocca, right? The little orange capsules, vitamin capsule things, vitamin C capsules. I saw an offer for this green version, right? Like a daily greens thing. And I was like, oh, go on then. I might as well try it. Let's have a look. And it was just so incentivized, right? I think I paid £2.50 for a month's supply. Basically, I think they did it as free plus shipping. And I do remember some massive issues with their website as well, but I can't remember the detail there. But anyway, bought this thing, and I remember it sat on my shelf for probably about 6 months before I finally opened it up and realized it was disgusting. And so that obviously doesn't help. But yeah, the fact that it sat there for 6 months, and that's 6 months of me not returning as a customer. I hadn't subscribed, I hadn't come back, and it was just because I out of impulse, I just went, yeah, go on then. It's literally £2.50. I'll try it. So yeah, when you over incentivize and over discount, you get the wrong type of customer through. Best case scenario, they do actually want your product. They're just taking advantage of a discount. The lifetime value is going to be rubbish. They're probably not going to come back. If they do, they will remember the fact that they got 50% off. They're not going to pay 100%. Right? I'm sure you guys are aware of some big supplement brands in the UK who are quite well known for just doing massive, massive discounts all the time. You would never pay full price for their products, right? And it's just so damaging. So that's why, to finish my little rant, CRO, conversion rate optimization, but it's not about conversion rates. It's about long-term growth, right? It's a growth discipline for a business. And I think quite importantly as well, it's not a marketing channel, right? It doesn't sit alongside PPC and social and email and stuff. It is separate, right? This is something that works with those teams and supports them in addition to what they're doing. Like CRO doesn't really generate revenue, right? If I run a test on your website, but you haven't got any traffic, it doesn't do anything, right? So it's only making the most of what you're actually getting through in the first place.
Yeah, that's fascinating to reframe it as you can't really optimize for conversion rate if you don't look at it as a holistic picture for how it's going to actually improve your business. So really interesting that you framed it like that. Let's go into some tips then for e-commerce business owners. Are there some crucial strategies that you think would help a business overall, things that they could do to their website to enhance their conversion rates, but also the overall business health?
Yeah, absolutely. So for the website, so we have our UAM methodology, which was mentioned at the start, which is basically usability, anxiety, and motivation. So it's 3 kind of behaviors on a website. Usability, how does the website work, right? How easily can I find and buy what I'm looking for, right? We're not really looking for bugs or anything like this. We obviously do that analysis and check for things, but we're not looking for problems on a website in that sense. But we're looking for, is your navigation clear and obvious? Can I find the search bar easily? Can I work out how to add the right quantity of my product to the cart? When it's all in the cart, can I easily remove certain quantities or certain products? And then can I easily get through to checkout, all that sort of stuff? Like just if I know what I want to buy, let's say I click through a PPC ad, right? So I know I have a pretty good idea of what I want to buy. Can I click through that ad, find what I want, and purchase it within a minute or two? There's no golden rule on that timing, but if someone can't do it that quickly when they know what they want, there's probably a problem there. The anxiety side is questions and concerns people have. So about your products and your business. So what's all the information someone would need to know about your product in order to make a purchase? And 99% of the time, there's key information missing on product pages, or it's hidden. So when I say missing, I mean from a customer point of view, they don't see it. So an example I normally use is food, right? So let's say I'm buying like a ready meal or something, or even something like Gusto, a meal kit. I want to know what the dish is, what the ingredients are, what allergens are in there, probably nutritional content, and the instructions for it. Maybe what kit is required. I want to make sure that I've got what I need to make it. Some of those pieces you can probably get away with, right? So if you didn't put nutritional content on there, you'd probably take a hit to conversion, but it's not going to be as bad. If you didn't put allergens on there, that could really kill it, right? Or at least for a certain group of people, right? If someone has a nut allergy and there's no message at all about whether it does or doesn't contain nuts, they can't buy it, right? Other kind of softer examples are that people don't think of a lot is, we work with a lighting brand, and a lot of the feedback was, how do I change the light bulb? Right? These are LED lights. They're quite, kind of designer style. So they are a bit more complex. It's not as simple as changing the bulb. But it's the fact that people are asking this question about something that might not happen or shouldn't happen for, 5 years, 3 to 5 years. LED bulbs are not supposed to go very quickly. So this is stuff they were thinking of before they purchased, right? Other stuff could be installation. I saw a really good example once of it was a bookshelf. I think it was a bookshelf, might have been a mirror. And it specifically said you didn't need to screw holes into the wall, or it was no need for power tools. It uses an adhesive to stick to the wall, which I thought was great. I thought it was a really interesting piece of information. I think they could have gone further and just said, specifically, no need to drill holes in the walls. Could have added maybe perfect for people renting, something like that. Maybe that's on the advertising side. But the point is, a lot of people don't want to drill holes into their walls, either because they can't or because they're not allowed to. Right? So putting that bit of information in there has probably made a load of people purchase that, who were thinking, well, if I don't screw it in, if I don't nail it to the wall or screw it to the wall, is it going to be unstable?
It's interesting because it really, all that's doing, I guess, is converting what is seen as just a feature by the seller of the product into the benefit that the consumer actually gets. It's like, they don't necessarily care whether it's screw or adhesive, but what they care about is whether they have to ruin the wall if they're renting, like you say, and the hassle of then having to fill it later. So fascinating change in wording, because they might mention comes with adhesive, but that technical language isn't going to jump out to someone who's renting to think, actually, I'll go for that one over the one that has a screw because of that reason. So it's a really good point.
Yeah, well, if it's left that vague, you might think it's adhesive to actually put the thing together and not how it fits to the wall. So the other part of anxiety is the business as well. If I've never heard of your business, I'm going to question, if you're legit, right? Do I trust buying from you? So there's a few things you can do with that around, obviously, social proof. If you've got evidence of good contact details on your website, a physical address, those just little things that, don't have to stand out on the web page, but people do a quick check for them. That's really important. What a lot of people do also is they go to your normally Instagram profile. So they'll check to see if you've got a story, whether you've got recent posts, whether you get engagement, and whether engagement is good or bad. So, even if you're like, oh, we're not focused on Instagram, we don't really care, it's worth doing a little bit on it. I remember I spoke to someone on my podcast, years ago now, about 3 years ago. And one thing he said was, you don't need to try and drive likes to your page or your profile on Instagram, because when you run ads, you'll just get it. Some people will just start to like your page and follow you. So just by running ads, you should be able to build up a bit of a following there. So just start posting content, makes you look more legit. And then we've got a motivation factor, which is probably the most important, which is, why should I actually buy the product? What's it going to do for me? So normally we're looking for either a pain point that the product solves or a desired outcome that the product helps you achieve. Right. So, and there's a lot of products where you can go both ways with that. You can test both options. Some industries, one works better than the other. Sometimes you don't want to point out negatives, but you just want to say, look how much better you can be. But the important thing really is, while they all are pretty important, they do kind of stack. So if I find the product I'm looking for and the purchase journey is really easy and I can buy it easily, and it answers all my questions, but I don't feel like it's going to change my life, there's a good chance that I'm not going to commit to the purchase, right? Because vast majority of businesses out there and products out there are not solving an immediate problem, really, right? People just think about it and they go, oh yeah, do you know what? Maybe I should buy this thing. Maybe this would be helpful. I'll get that done. But if you can't convince someone that it's going to be life-changing for them, right? We want them on the page thinking, reading through all the details, looking at pictures, maybe watching a video and going, I have to have this. Can I get it tomorrow? Right? That's the mentality we want people in. And so if you don't get that, they could tick all the boxes off their checklist for what the product does, but they just, they might think, okay, look at the price. All right, maybe I'll just quickly check a couple of other websites to see what other options are out there. We don't want that, right? We want people thinking there's no need to go somewhere else, or I can't be bothered to go somewhere else because I think I found what I need. And so that's the method we use for on-site. And a lot of that can apply elsewhere. The motivation factors are really good in advertising and email as well. You can get the anxiety stuff into email as well, talk about social proof, product features and stuff. But the key thing really that every business can go do is customer research, right? Go speak to your customers and find out what they care about, right? Why did your actual customers purchase, right? What was the pain point they were trying to solve? What was the desired outcome they're trying to achieve? And did they get that? And for the people who didn't purchase, because you normally build up an email list of people who subscribe to your 10%, 15% off, but don't purchase. So again, send an email out to them. What was the number one reason you didn't purchase from us? And then we normally do a few other questions. We might ask about alternatives that people have tried, competitors they've bought from. Sometimes we'll ask about, what did you think about their product? What did you think about them as a service and their business? And we can take all that information and feed it into, an optimization strategy. And other bits you can do out there, if you are pretty new, pretty small, if you don't have that email list, look at reviews. Reviews and I'll start with customer service actually. Review your customer service tickets. Find out what people are asking you, what questions are being asked. It's so shocking how many people are asking about stuff that should be obvious on the website, and the brands are convinced is obvious on the website, but isn't. Stuff like shipping policy, right? How much is shipping going to cost me, and what do I need to spend to get free shipping, and returns policies. And so many brands now have that accordion, the information accordion, which I hate. It's terrible. You're asking people to click to find information, right? We don't want them to do that. We want them to scroll. It'll always be there. So normally product details, product specifications, shipping, returns policy, something like that. So the information is there, but people don't see it, right? So that's where we start to stick it, above the fold, near the call to action. So that's customer service. But again, if you're not getting much of that because you're a small business, reviews, right? So you can look at your own reviews, find out what people are saying about you, or look at your competitors, right? You'll all have massive competitors who probably have hundreds, if not thousands of reviews. Find a scraping tool, go and scrape the reviews on the big review platforms. For your competitors, chuck them into either a Word document or an Excel document, upload them to ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT to give you a summary of them. Give it a prompt, explain the context behind what you're doing, and just get ChatGPT to do it. And it'll save you so many hours. It's fantastic. And you get so much insight. And what you're looking for is, what were people trying to achieve? What were they disappointed in? What could have been better about the product? What do they like about the products they bought? All these sort of things where you'll get insight that helps you run better ads and do and optimize your website. One that I see a lot is if you search for vacuum cleaners or hoovers on Amazon, so many of them say that they're really good for cats, dogs, or pets. Right? Because that's 100% information that's come through customer feedback or reviews. One of the only factors that actually makes a difference to some people, right? If you don't have a pet, you don't care about that, you just need a vacuum, right? You just got to do the job, right? So it's only pet owners that have to do it. But also, I think there's probably that factor of, even if you're not a pet owner, if you're aware that they drop a load of hair and they're dirty, if this vacuum is good for that, it's going to give you the impression that it's a really, really good cleaner, Right? So even for a non-pet owner, you're probably going to be like, well, I don't want to buy something average. I want to buy something powerful to make sure it cleans my house. So why not go overboard and buy something that's designed for, for pets and stuff? That's probably where I'd go with that. So the UAM for the website, and use customer research to figure out what's actually missing. Yeah.
That's fascinating. I think there are a few nuggets of gold there that I think anyone listening to this who has their own store can immediately action. So first thing I was looking at was the trust signals off platform. So off-site trust signals, which when you think of CRO, when it comes to e-commerce, I think people's mind immediately jumps to like, oh, what do you need to have above the fold? Which color do you need to add to cart button to be? Like, what do you have in your header? Whereas actually what you're saying is we're dealing with humans here. They're not just like robotic site analyzers. They're looking around, they're looking on Instagram, they're looking for other trust signals. So that the accordion thing's a great tip. Like that, people would assume from a web development standpoint and a web design standpoint, like, oh, it's much better. You can compact so much more information into these 3 little plus symbols. But like you say, it then hides it. And what good is it if it's hidden and people can't see it? And so I love that. The review analysis on ChatGPT as well. That's a real ninja tip. I think that's one that
you could use ChatGPT for a lot of analysis now. So when we do our customer interviews, surveys and stuff, we normally just chuck it all into ChatGPT. We've got our set prompts for it now that we've worked on for quite a while to get right. So we're now pretty comfortable that it actually can give good insight and summaries for that. We do check it every now and again. So, normally the way we do it is we'll ask for common pain points that have popped up, and please provide a quote from the interview for it. And we check the quote, basically. And sometimes ChatGPT will make up a quote or misquote it. It just, it's annoying, but it does it. So you have to be aware, but just double check it.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, we're going to dive into a lot more detail, I know, during our training session that we've got reserved exclusively for our Inner Circle members. But in terms of converting high ticket items when it comes to an e-commerce store, so when we say high ticket, we're usually talking about products upwards of £300 all the way up to products that are, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. We've got members in our program every day making sales of multiple £1,000s for single items. So obviously those are a different set of challenges versus, with a higher volume, things like supplements and much lower ticket stuff. So from your experience, are there any common hurdles that e-commerce stores face in this area in terms of like additional trust signals or trust barriers that they need to overcome before someone will part with that level of money for a product?
Not really. It still comes down to those factors of, make sure people can find and buy what they want, make sure you answer all their questions, and make sure that you're convincing them it's the right product for them. But when it comes to high value, and actually, I mean, it does apply to the rest of e-commerce as well, but specifically, like more so for high ticket, you can't expect your Facebook ads to convert directly all the time. It doesn't work, right? If someone's never heard of your business, if they've never even considered buying your product, when they see your advert, they might click it and they're showing some interest. Yeah, there's a little bit of intent there. Doesn't mean they're going to purchase, right? So one thing I think is really important when you're on these high value is, give them as much information as you can. Try and do comparisons if it makes sense. So if you can put a compelling comparison together of you and your competitors, and you can pick you, a lesser known competitor, and the kind of brand leader in the category, assuming you can compete against it, obviously. Put that comparison together. Just I guess one big tip for this is don't give yourself full marks on everything, right? It can't look like you are literally the best product. Even if you genuinely are, even if you could beat all these other products on 10 points on a comparison table, it doesn't look real, right? People don't believe it. So make sure you just mark yourself down on something that people would happily, not care about so much. But yeah, I think the important thing is nurturing, like lead capture, nurturing people, putting them into retargeting flows, trying to bring them back, and recognizing the different intent levels at different stages. So, if someone's been on a list for a while, if they've been opening emails, maybe they've downloaded some content that you've produced, they're going to be higher intent, so you can retarget them with more direct sales ads to try and get them back. Someone who's come to you for the first time, probably won't leave their email address, so retarget them, and maybe retarget them with some information, or show them a video about why your product is so great, and then you'll bring them back, try and capture that email address. There's a lot of zero-party data is probably one of the hottest topics right now, which is basically, if I'm going to give you my email address in exchange for a discount, but really you can't do anything with that except email me, right? You can't. We'll get into personalization properly later, but you can't do anything except except send your generic emails if all you have is my email address. So, give me an example of a high ticket category.
The one we often go to is barbecues, like big outdoor grills. So if someone's spending £1,000 on a premium luxury outdoor barbecue set.
Okay. Cool. Interesting. Right. So zero party data for that might be, you could just do when you're looking to buy. You probably wouldn't need to do that one with barbecues because you roughly know when barbecue season is, especially here in the UK. You've got about 3 weeks. You could probably go a little bit in budget, so you understand how much they're willing to spend. It's a bit of a tougher one to ask because some people might not want to give you that. So maybe what you could ask is experience, right? How experienced are you with barbecues? What's your experience level? You could ask, what is your preference? Do you prefer charcoal or gas, or like a hybrid or whatever? You could ask if they want a kettle or ceramic, or I don't know, what's the long flat one called? The one that's not a kettle or a ceramic. The one that's like a rectangular grill sort of thing, the more standard thing. Try and figure out what they're actually looking for, what they're interested in, what sort of level they're at with things. You could also ask, how many people do they tend to cook for? Or what sort of occasions is it for? Is it for family barbecues? Is it for hosting? That sort of thing. Because then you can use this data, you can put them into email flows which target those relevant points, right? So if I've said I'm an expert barbecuer and I want a ceramic, so actually you wouldn't need to go asking price, because if someone says they want ceramic, they're at the higher end of the budget anyway. So that, and that I like cooking for a load of people, then you can tailor your email content around that. And you can say, here are our 3 best ceramic barbecues, and here's some content around how you can cook for a lot of people on these barbecues. What sort of items you should do, and different cooking types and things, so provide value.
Just to clarify on that one, Will, so when you say about segmenting customers into those different demographics or audiences within the parent niche of, say, barbecues in this example, are you suggesting that you collect that preference in like a checkbox on the actual email opt-in pop-up, kind of like a Daniel Priestley style score app, like quiz survey thing, where you gamify the process a little bit and say, like, which barbecue's right for you kind of thing?
Yeah, so you could either use, I think Klaviyo doesn't limit the number of steps you can have. I think they changed that. It used to be you could add one more step, I think. So you can either do it through Klaviyo, and you have, would you like 10% off your first purchase? Drop your email in, right? So you capture the email, right? Most important thing, you still want to capture the email. Second page, you might start with, answer a few questions so that we can help recommend you the right products or right content, whatever. And that would say, question 1, whichever question 1 is, and then you do question 2, 3, 4. Test how many you can go with. Just the key thing is make sure you can do something with the data, right? It's not because you find it interesting, right? No one cares about that. It's, can you trigger an email? Can you segment the email and base content on what they've told you, right? So, if you asked, what's your preference for meat, whatever, or what's your preference to cook on the barbecue? Is it meat, veg, fish, or whatever? I mean, all right, you can provide them some content on that, but it's not going to change which barbecues they can buy, right? So it's not actually that useful information.
Yeah, makes sense. Only actionable. I like the idea though, like you're saying, not introduce any friction before you ask for the email. Get that bit done like you normally would, And afterwards, I presume if you have like a 4-step quiz or survey, you'll start to see a tail off in that data anyway towards like question 4. Like people will be answering the first couple and then you might not get that much, too far into it.
I think if you get the questions right and you've positioned it correctly, you should get quite a good completion rate on it.
That's fascinating.
Well, people at least answer one more question, and that's all you need really. So, try and get a good question up front, which could be what style of barbecue are you looking for? That could be the first one. You get all that data and you segment people into flows, right? And then you can start to provide relevant content in those emails. That you can present ceramic barbecues to the people who've said, I want a ceramic barbecue, and then send them to those pages. Right. And then you can, going further, you could build landing pages and specific, things. You could say, here are our 3 best ceramic barbecues. One's 500 quid, one's 750, one's 1,000, and show the differences between them. Whatever. Actually, you'd use better pricing psychology than that.
That's a whole different conversation.
That was stupid, but you get the point.
Yeah. Having a landing page as well then gives you the option to pixel them and then retarget them with specific messaging related to the category that they fell into. So it's a great move, and I think it's something that a lot of e-commerce business owners are doing. So I'd certainly be reviewing our setup after this conversation. So thank you, Will, for some fascinating tips there. So as we wrap up this initial conversation, if you could give us one piece of actionable advice for our listeners looking to improve the conversion rates of their e-commerce dropshipping stores, what would it be?
I would say open up Google Analytics, GA4. You can do this in Shopify as well for this purpose. It could still work. You want to look at the e-commerce purchase funnel or purchase journey, where you will see a graph in GA4, and it will show you total sessions that viewed a product, sessions that added to cart, begin checkout and complete checkout. And look for where those metrics are not great. Right, so you want to look at the top metric along the top, because that's the flow through metric, right? So we want to look at how many out of all the sessions that land on your website, how many of them view a product, right? If you're getting lower than probably 60%, you've got a problem, right? Because if 50% of your traffic is not even viewing a product, what's it doing? Right? Obviously, there's nuance to this context, right? If you drive a hell of a load of blog traffic, organic blog traffic to your website, a lot of that probably won't or might not view a product. So you got to bear that stuff in mind. But yeah, you probably want 60% view rate minimum. Otherwise, big red flag. Probably higher than that, actually, probably more like 70. Add to cart rate. This one varies a lot depending on category and values and stuff, but for general e-commerce, we look for about 13-14%. So people who view a product, how many of them add to cart? 13-14%. Below 10%, red flag, start looking into this. But again, does depend a bit on your products and stuff. If, we work with a brand who was selling sofas for $10,000. The add to cart rate is not going to be that high, and there's nothing we can do about that. Then you want your start checkout rate, which should probably be 50-60%, and your complete checkout rate from that, which should be 50-60%, like minimum. Those still aren't, I would say those are still not great figures. Those minimums I gave, so like 60, 10, 60. You can make improvements on those, but anything lower than that, I'd say, okay, you've got a problem here. You need to look into how to fix this. And then the best way to do that is use your behavioral analytics. So Hotjar, we recommend Clarity now because it's free and it tracks all your data, and it's really good. When you've identified one of those stages, so let's say product views, it's one of the most common ones we see a problem with product views. Go to your collection pages for heat maps and look at where people are clicking, right? And try and figure out, why aren't people, where are they clicking and where they're not clicking? If no one's clicking on your filters, for example, and you've got loads of products, that's probably a good reason why they're not then clicking through to a product, because they're not even filtering down your listings. And you can also use session recordings. So within the tools, you can segment the data, you can filter the data. So you can say, for product views, you could say, all sessions that do not add to cart. You could probably leave it at that. No, you could actually say doesn't. You could say doesn't view a product page. So it'd be something like does not visit a page which contains /product, something like that, depending on your URL structure. And then you can look at what they're doing. Watch session recordings at 1.5 times speed. See what they do. Ideally, you're looking. You could probably also filter and say people who do visit a collection page, most likely, whatever you're set, depending on your brand, your website, and just watch those session recordings and see what they do, and see do they play around with your filters? Do they scroll up and down and then drop? You might see that they're clicking in certain places and nothing's happening, that sort of thing. So there's nothing that I can just say like this will be the problem. It's you've got to figure out where the problem is in the funnel. Go and look at what people are doing at that stage in the funnel, and then ideally, if you've got the time and the resource and the data, ask people about their experience. Actually, if you're really small, and really don't have that audience list already, do some user testing. So you can either use a tool like UserBrain, user testing, or you could literally take your laptop down to a coffee shop, buy 10 people their coffees, put the laptop down in front of them and say, could you do me a favor? I want, give me some feedback on the website. Can you please go to my website and buy X, whatever product, and just watch them as they do it. Take notes. You could potentially record your screen if you wanted to as well, and just ask them what they're thinking along the way as well. So if you see people doing things that you don't understand, ask them why they're doing that, because that's the bit you need to know. It doesn't matter that they're not doing it; it's why they're not doing it that actually helps you fix it.
Yeah, it can be incredibly frustrating as a business owner to watch someone navigating your own website and then they get distracted by something and you think, that's not what you're supposed to do. That's not the ideal route. But I guess that's the skill of this, isn't it? And I think one of the things that stands out to me as an e-commerce business owner, you're wearing so many hats. There's always fires to fight. There are always things that you've got to manage in your business that take priority. And the tips you've given today are incredible. But I think it highlights the value of having an expert really dive into this for you, who knows what they're doing, who's got years of experience doing this. So I know you guys have an unbeatable CRO guarantee. Could you talk to me a little bit about that, Will, and how that works?
Yeah, so we're a performance-based CRO agency. So we get paid on the uplifts that we generate for our clients based on testing. So we have a guarantee, which is we'll generate an extra 100,000 in revenue through those tests within 90 days of testing. So we normally spend about 30 days doing research and prepping those first tests. And then it's 3 months of testing. I would add that it applies to brands doing about 350, 400,000 in revenue upwards. Below that, there's not normally enough traffic and data to do that testing reliably. So we have some other services. We have an audit, we have consulting. We can work with brands of any size. But yeah, the guarantee, people love it, obviously, because it's a guarantee, and it works really well. We've not had to pay out so far, which is good. But it's a strong guarantee. But I would say it does apply to brands doing a minimum amount, because just I guess for context, if you're doing 100K in revenue, we'd have to double your revenue in 3 months, which doesn't happen through A/B testing on a website, right? You need more traffic. You need better AOV. There's a lot to do to get you to double your revenue.
Just to clarify, Will, are you saying 300,000 to 400,000 in revenue monthly or annually?
Monthly.
Monthly. Okay. So if you're at £300,000 to £400,000 per month, and you think and upwards, and you're ready to add an extra £100,000 in additional revenue to your business, then it feels like a no-brainer to sign up for. But as you say, you guys have things for e-commerce brand owners below that as well. So the best way for listeners of the Dropship Unlocked podcast to reach you guys, we've set up an easy link for you guys. So if they head over to dropshipunlocked.com/customers who click, and we'll put the link to that below in the show notes, then they can book in a time with you, Will, and chat further.
Yep. Yeah. So I'll take you through to the website. There's some information there about what we do, our process, and there's a booking link to book in a call with us.
Amazing. Well, that'd be super valuable. And sorry,
I would just add, the other best place to find me is LinkedIn. So I post daily content on there. about CRO and e-commerce generally. So yeah, if you're just looking for a few tips and things, that's a good place to go.
Well, you've certainly shared more than enough tips today, Will, to give a lot of value to anyone listening to this podcast who has their own brand. And if they want to take it a step further and work with you, then the link to do so is dropshipunlocked.com/customers who click. Well, thank you very much for joining us on the Dropship Unlocked podcast today.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
That was an incredible interview with Will there. Really enjoyed that one. And it's clear to see just how transformative good conversion rate optimization practices like the ones shared by Will in today's interview can be for any e-commerce business owner, no matter where you are on your journey. Will's approach was fascinating, both hearing how he optimizes for conversions. It was really insightful, but it was also jam-packed with highly actionable tips and tricks that we can each take away and implement into our own businesses.
Yes, his understanding of the customer's journey and his unique UAM approach is something that I'm going to take away and is gold dust for any e-commerce entrepreneur. So thank you, Will, again. I love doing these types of episodes. I learned so much from today's episode in such a short space of time. And some of the tactics he mentioned on the call, I know are going to have a huge exponential growth opportunity for everyone listening to today's episode. So it's all about taking action. So thinking about what he's taught us today, how can we put those into action? That will be the key.
Exactly. It's those small adjustments that you can make, those incremental tweaks that you can make in how you approach your site's user experience or your conversion funnel or whatever it is that you do, just to make those tiny tweaks that lead to significant overall improvements in both your conversions, but ultimately your profitability. Now, today's episode was jam-packed with value, so it's definitely one that you're probably going to want to go back to and re-listen to multiple times and probably take notes as well. I know it's a bit different to some of our usual episodes, but remember, it's about making this as easy as possible for your customers to say yes. That's the whole point of this, boiled down into one simple principle. It's just trying to remove the friction and make it more likely that more of your customers will say yes.
Enjoying the podcast? We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment or a review, and we might just feature it on an upcoming episode. Also, for detailed show notes and resources, head to dropshipunlocked.com/podcast.
If you found value from any episode of this podcast, please take just 10 seconds to leave us a quick 5-star review on your podcast app of choice. It helps us more than you could imagine, and who knows, you might just hear your comments on the show. Thanks for being part of our community. Your support helps us keep delivering a new episode every week.
Now, let's answer a question that we've had in from a listener of the podcast. So remember, if you want your questions answered, very simple. All you need to do is comment on the YouTube video version of an episode of the podcast, and we'll read it out and answer it in an upcoming episode. And that's exactly what Mr. Vinster798 has done. So he's asked, "Hi guys, love the content. When contacting UK suppliers, are you only working with companies who already offer dropshipping services?"
Hi, Mr. Vinster798. Great question. So yes, we are, but possibly not in the way that I think you might be asking when I kind of read between the lines on that question. So yeah, our primary focus is partnering with suppliers who do offer dropshipping as part of their service. But if a supplier is calling themselves a dropshipping supplier, the chances are they might not be quite aligned with the type of business model that you want to run, because they'll just be sending out products left, right, and center to anyone that signs up to their platform. And if the barrier to entry is that low to work with them, chances are there's probably a reason for it, and they're desperate for the sales because they're not very popular product or popular brands, or there's hardly any profit in it for you as a retailer. So yes, we do work with suppliers who do offer dropshipping as one of their fulfillment methods, but it doesn't mean that they're always solely dropshipping businesses. In fact, they're hardly ever solely dropshipping suppliers. They will offer the service because it aligns perfectly with our business model, especially in those initial stages of setting up your e-commerce store. But you want them to handle all of the aspects of delivery. You want them to handle the fulfillment, the managing, all of the aspects of actually holding and getting the product, the logistical challenges to customers. But we specifically approach suppliers who we know are already dropshipping, at least with some retailers. Okay, so you will be a retailer going into the market. If you can ensure that the suppliers you're going to contact are already dropshipping for at least some other retailers out there, it just ensures a much smoother integration into your business operations, because it means that the setup's faster. You don't need to teach them what dropshipping is. You don't need to explain the process to them. They're used to it. They're happy with it. And it just makes the whole thing so much more efficient. So it's just a much simpler way if you choose to only contact suppliers who are already familiar with the dropshipping model, although they may not call themselves dropshipping suppliers, that's not what we're looking for, then you're going to find it a much, much easier path to getting up and running. So for full details on that, check out episode 22 of the podcast if you want to learn the exact process that we use to sign UK dropshipping suppliers.
Yeah. Thank you, Lewis. Great answer and great question. And also let's highlight a recent review that we've had in for the podcast. And this review came in through Apple Podcasts. So thank you very much to Anne4831. And she left a review that said, so motivating and inspiring to anyone wanting to start dropshipping.
Anne4831, you legend. Thank you so much for what a wonderful review that is. And we're really glad to hear that you've been enjoying the podcast. Do you want a chance to join our elite masterclass program and our community completely for free? To be in with a chance to win free access to our program, simply leave us a review for the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Check out episode 52 of the podcast as well for full details on how to enter that competition.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Dropship Unlocked podcast. We hope you're walking away with insights and inspiration.
To kickstart your e-commerce journey, grab a copy of my book, The Home Turf Advantage, at htabook.com. It's a distilled guide based on real experience to help you build your e-commerce venture.
Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more strategies and success stories. And if you like what you heard, a 5-star review would mean the world to us, and you might just get a shout out on an upcoming episode.
And finally, thank you for deciding to spend your time with us today. We can't wait to bring you more insights on the next episode of the Dropship Unlocked podcast.